Hey guys, what do you think of my new hat? So today's episode, I'm going to show you exactly how I made this. This is a patch that was embroidered on the cap with white thread, and then I sublimated over it. I put it back in the machine and did the embroidery and have a 3D effect with the actual string. So it looks like, and this is an actual fly that I tied. Check it out. Stick around, I'm going to show you just how I did it. All right, we're back. Now, your embroidery machine, whether it's the EM1010, the MT, the Swift, can do very big designs like this one, right? So you can do really big designs, or you can make really small ones like these little patches and things like that. So when we tell you that you can't make a patch on a hat, or you can't do a design that's bigger than 3 inches, it's because there's a physical limitation of the hat itself. So for example, this patch that I did, this is a 2.5 by 4 inch patch. It's 2.5 inches wide or tall and 4 inches wide. Now, when you look at this, that patch takes up a big amount of space, and you can only go approximately 1/2 inch from the bottom, and you have a limited space on top. So depending on the hat, that is what's going to determine how big of an image you can put on it, okay? So for example, this is a 3-inch design, and I've got my ruler right here. This is 3 inches tall. On a hat that has a profile that's super big like this one, let's measure it. This one is actually 3.5. So you couldn't put you might be able to put a 3-inch design on this, because if I go 1/2 inch from the bottom, notice the tip will still get here. And as the machine is sewing, the sewing arm may come up and push this up a little bit. So this might work. So you might be able to get away with it with this type of hat. Now, with a hat like this that has a curve into it, it might be a little bit harder to get a design that's 3 inches. So this particular hat may not be a good candidate for that. You might have a 2-inch design would be better. So something like this, which is approximately 1.75 inches tall, would work. So this would be okay to do. So it's really important that we clear the air on that. It's not that the machine can't embroider 3 inches on a hat, it's that the hat won't take it. So if you're trying to put a really big design on a small profile hat, it's not gonna work, okay? So let me grab my ruler. All right, so this design for the racing design is 2 inches tall. It's about 2 inches tall. And look, it looks really nice when you have it on the hat. So you really don't need big designs when you're making caps, but it is important that you fit the right design on the right cap. So if you have a client that's saying, hey, I need a 4-inch design, but your cap will only accommodate 3 or 2, it's not gonna work, all right? And you're gonna give yourselves a lot of problems. We had a customer bring us an image that was 4 inches, and the image was clearly above these little lines. So when the machine was sewing, it was pushing the cap out and getting it all distorted, and it was able to sew here, but as it was sewing, it's no longer a flat surface. It was actually going to warp the hat, and the person was having needle breaks. Of course it's going to happen, because the hat cannot handle that big of a design. Something with a higher profile like this will be able to. Notice this is really flat. This is perfect. Anytime you get to the curvature, you have to be careful, and the curvature on this stops right about 3 inches. That's where the curvature stops. So if you figure that you have to be a 1/2 inch away from the bottom and about a 1/2 inch away from the top, that leaves you with a 2-inch design. So this particular hat is only going to take 2 inches. So I can't emphasize that enough. Make sure that you guys pick the right size design for the right size hat. All right, so let's break it down. So this is our cap today. And the image, like I said, it's a patch that is a 2.5 inch patch by 4 inches. And I created it on Chroma. It's just a complex fill, a tatami complex fill with a border to make it look like a patch. Now you can use this same image to create a patch to then put it on your cap. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to sublimate it. So I embroidered the cap with a white thread. Now your polyester thread, the thread that you use on the embroidery machine is polyester, and you can sublimate on polyester. So that's why it's really important that when you're doing this, you use polyester thread. And I created a white design, so it was just a regular white patch, white thread with a border, and I made the border match the cap. So for example, here's another one where the border matches the cap. It's a black border. Here we have a blue border, and yet another example of the dark blue border around the same thing. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to change things up a little bit and do something different. So this is sublimation on top of the thread to make it look like a patch, and then I rehooped it and I did the embroidery again with the figure of the fisherman, and then I created a little patch with the fish, and then I actually tied a string to it, or in this case, there's actually a hook, so in case of an emergency I could use it, and I was able to put the string in there to make it look like the guy's really fishing, just to give it, you know, you've never seen hats like this, and I want you guys to think outside the box. Always try to be creative, and I got the idea from this competition that I saw in Australia. So this is what I kind of thought would be kind of cool, and I have two different versions of fishermen. You could tell me which one you like, either the canoe fisherman or the motorboat fisherman right there. All right, so the process goes as follows. I took a hat and I embroidered the patch on the hat. Once I was done with that part, I then printed out the sublimation image on the Luminaris 200 white toner transfer printer with sublimation capabilities. I had the image, I then took the hat and I masked the areas off. If you don't mask the area off, or if you try to sublimate the hat, it's possible that the ink will bleed through and actually get on the hat cap itself. So in this case, because I am using a white cap, it's really important that I don't let the color bleed anywhere. So for example, I do have a cap here. If you take a look real carefully right there, even though I masked this off, it still bled through a little bit. So the heat transfer tape in one layer allows the ink to kind of fuse through it or pass through it. So what I ended up doing is, while using the cap hoop station, I put the cap on the cap hooping stations so it could stay nice and steady for me. And I put a double layer of tape around the whole patch so that any ink would not transmit to the actual base. So here you can see there's just a slight bit of transmission of the ink. That's okay. But on this one, because I used the double tape method, I didn't get any ink that came out the side. And again, when you're printing the design, even though this is a 2.5 inch by 4 inch patch, I made the design 2 3/4 by 4 1/4, just a little quarter edge so that it would overlap it to make sure that I got even distribution of the design. And when you're making hats with this method, it's important that a 5-panel hat is way better because the front is nice and flat. If I were to use a hat with the seam inside, it would end up, it wouldn't allow me to apply even pressure on the hat itself. And this would cause some type of deterioration in the image, and you would see where the image wasn't really pressed up against the hat. So once again, make sure that if you're going to do this, you use a 5-panel hat instead of a 6-panel like this one, all right? So once I had the hat embroidered and masked off, it was then time to place the image on it. So I placed the image on the hat with 2 little pieces of tape. And once that was in place, I put it in the heat press for 60 seconds at 380 degrees. So the hat press was at 380 degrees for 60 seconds, and you just press it once. And once it comes out, you just peel off the tape with the paper, and voila, you have your image. So that's that for the sublimation. Now you could stop right there and get something that's really nice like this, but I wanted to just enhance it a little bit and actually put it back in the hoop in the cap driver, and I digitized it on chroma. And I just took some random images, some fishermen, and I just digitized the shapes, and I put it on the hat. Now, I did mine on purpose where the actual fishing rod is sticking out of the hat, just to kind of give it that 3-dimension. You know, you guys want to think outside the box and just kind of make things really fun. Okay? So once I digitized it, I kind of had 2 versions, and I rehooped the cap, and by tracing and making sure the design was in the right place, I was able to do it. Now, in this case, notice how the little tip of the fishing rod kind of extends beyond my embroidery space. Well, that's okay. When you're doing something like this where it's just a couple stitches that are going to go beyond the area that you should embroider, that's okay because it's just a couple stitches. But if I was doing an image that was way up here, it would not work because of the curvature of the hat, and it just extends beyond the capability of the hat itself. It can't handle it. The machine can do it, but the hat itself can't handle it. But here, this is okay for it to just go through here. Once I had the cap back in the hoop, I placed my image and I embroidered it. And once that's done, you just simply remove it from the cap driver. And now I took the little patches that I made, and I used several different machines to do this. So I used the Marquee 2001, I used the Marquee 1501. I even think I used the EM1010 to make like a little patch or something. But, so once you have this, I just glued the little fish onto the cap, or you could sew it on, but I just glued it onto it. And then I ran some fishing line from the tip of the cap, or the tip of the fishing rod, all the way to the mouth of the bass. And this is actually a fly with an actual hook in it. This one is just a string. So just for fun, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this hat, and because there is a fisherman on here, I'm going to put this shoe here as if I've caught a shoe, because I'm pretty sure some of you guys have gone fishing and caught cans and shoes. So I think this is going to be kind of funny.